Good morning. I'm Daquan Dre Rankins, and I'm coming to you today to talk about what works brief number 19. So let's get started with question number one. Share an aha moment. One aha moment that I had that I think I had really for these last what works briefs is just that I didn't know that was any type of intervention for these type of behaviors. Essentially, I did not know it was any type of intervention for children that had behavior problems. Now I knew it was. I wouldn't necessarily say intervention, but I knew that there was some type of screenings going on for children that had autism or ADHD, something like that. But I never knew if children acted out that there was some type of intervention for them. Um, Furthermore, I did not know that. One thing I did know and understand that children that had behavior issues had mentors, I guess, to come sit with them during class. If I can remember when I was in elementary school, that my cousin was actually a mentor, and she came and sat in my class. Not necessarily not with me, but with another student. And I didn't. I knew that this student was a bad child, not really bad child, but or have behavior issues essentially. But one thing I did not know, I didn't know that he went through the screening process or the intervention process where he can no longer be helped by the teacher, or the teacher may need help with him essentially. So that's one thing I did not know about. One aha moment that I had essentially for last weeks or so. Number two, an example of, excuse me, I'm sorry about this. Um, an example of how a child is able to function in his or her own environment. One thing I can honestly say with the child functioning in his or her own environment, when you lay out the instructions for the child, one by one, piece by piece, literally that child is able to function a little bit better. They're able to communicate better, say, hey, Miss Such and so, or Mr. Such and so, what's next? Like, what can I do now? And then you have already the instructions placed to them one by one. Essentially, it can get challenging at times to try to give someone instructions one by one, piece by piece. However, that's the nature of being a educator or a future early childhood development teacher, essentially, because you have to know your each child essentially. So if one child needs step by step and the other one can accelerate, there has to be some place in the middle. If not in the middle, then you give the child the same, the two children the same activities, and you place one child in one corner accelerating fast, but then you work with another child step by step, piece by piece, because essentially, I mean, like, your child, I mean, not your child, but like, your student, essentially. So just being able to have that communication open, like between that child and that student and you, and just being able to really helping them to like communicate with you and like communicate effectively. I can honestly say in my brochure, I am at the final exam. I was very big on my program with communicating because I needed because I know for me, enable for me to know what's wrong with someone, I have to understand what you're saying, or at least point to what you're saying to me. So my biggest thing with my final exam was communication, and I can honestly say with question number two, it is very important because teachers or educators are not able to communicate effectively if the child is not communicating effectively essentially. So that behavior has to be taught essentially to the child from the educator or from the parent essentially. Number three, the number three is to discuss whether or not you have been exposed to children. Um, One in this nature, I can honestly say I can. I think I used the example of my internship a lot. I had when I was 17, essentially. Um, Basically, with these children, I had to do step by step with all of them. There was not one I didn't have to do step by step by, because if you give a child a lot of steps, that child can be overwhelmed. Children get overwhelmed very fast. They start playing. They start to get upset. Children start to give up on themselves, and essentially you have to make sure that you keep motivating that child. You have to keep making sure that you motivate the child to do great. You have to also give them break time in between tasks. You can't just go from one task and then jump to the next task right away. You have to schedule break times in between that. So I guess for me, just learning um, that part, learning how to break, and learning how to deal with children that need step by step. And I can honestly say, for me, I need step by step as an adult. Even in college now, I know for me, I get very overwhelmed very quick with work. Not saying I am slow or anything like that, but for me, you can't just give me a big thing and expect me to go ahead and do it. Now, granted, we are in college, and granted, we are college students, and we are about to graduate. Well, I know for me at least. But I know for me personally, I like to take it step by step, because if I start thinking about the different things I have to do ahead, then I start getting overwhelmed. So I definitely understand a child's mind, essentially, because once you give a child a lot of things to do at one time, the child starts to skip around, and he starts to miss steps of what to really do, essentially. Number four, discuss how. Sorry, I can't speak. I'm sorry. So discuss how you will or could use the strategies addressed in the future. Some of these strategies address that were in the story was definitely one to read a child's body language, providing the child with choices, like providing pictures, schedules to help the child move easily between activities. I just read a few of them only because those few means so much. Reading a child's body language is definitely important, because when you read their body language, sorry, it tells you, I don't want to do it, Mr. D, or I don't want to do it, Miss Chavis, or I don't want to do it, Mr. Rankis. I don't want to do it. Usually, their body language will tell you everything, without even them saying nothing. If you see them with their arms folded or slouching over, don't really want to do anything, then that means that they are either getting bored, or they are very much so overwhelmed. Number two, providing the child with choices. I learned through doing my lesson plans last semester, you have to be flexible with your lesson plan, because you can set out something for that day. You can set out something what you want the child to do for that time, for that period. However, it can go left very quick. So I know for me personally, I tried my best to have a variety of colors around me, so the child can feel like they were important, so they can feel like they were independent. I gave them Play-Doh. The Play-Doh had three different colors, like purple, when I'm mistaken, purple, red, orange, and blue. When I'm mistaken, that's four different colors. Essentially, I was able to give each child a color and make them feel independent, essentially. Furthermore, um, number three, providing picture schedules to help the child move easily between activities. I saw that in the Child Development Center at Central. Um, Seeing that, I was really caught off guard, because I didn't know that children need actual pictures to actually move to the next activity. Now, I know a lot of times pictures make things look interesting, so that's probably why you need pictures to make the child go smoothly into the next activity. Um, and not only that, but I was also taught by Miss Kimberly. She was able to teach me that you need something in between your actual activity. You need an activity to transition to your activity. And I think I was able to learn that providing extra work or providing pictures to move on to the next activity, or like providing something to do in between, it helps the child to move on to the next level. It helps the child to move on to different things, and just being able to allow them to feel independent, and feel great, to be honest, and important. So I think that was my take on what works brief number 19. Let me say I definitely enjoyed this semester because I was able to learn a lot, especially about communicating through children, teachers, and all of that great stuff. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your summer, and I will see maybe some of you guys in the fall.